Okay, guys, so now you have your theme selected. Your thesis paragraph has been approved. You have a revised works cited page that notes the critics that you're going to be using for each poem. And before you get into an outlining situation, which is the next major assignment, you really need to sit down and take care of your source and note cards for your poems. And remember, what we mean by poems is we're talking about the primary sources. Your primary sources are the three titles, the three poems that you've selected for exploration that all share the common themes. So now we already have a source card, if you've made one, for your volume of poetry that has the bibliographic information on it. So what we want to tackle now is we want to tackle the idea that we want to get, if this is, let's say, card number 6, we want to get 3 specific lines, references from poem number 1. So we might refer to poem number 1 as 6A. We want to get 3 direct quotes from poem number 2. So we might refer to this as 6B because they all come from the same volume of poetry. And then we need to get 3 more direct quotes that tie into our theme from poem number 3. And we'll perhaps call this poem 6C. And the number 6 just corresponds to the fact that all of these poems, all 3, are coming from the same volume of poetry. So let's take a look. Let's say, for argument's sake, I'm working with poet William Blake. He is not an American poet, he's a British poet, and I thought it might be better for me to stick to something British because then I won't be giving any student an unfair advantage by talking about an American poet. So this is my volume of poetry from William Blake, and in the contents of this volume, I'm going to be able to find poem number 1, poem number 2, and poem number 3. So therefore, I want to have a source card that denotes the actual volume. And we've done these before: last name, first name, title of the collection. There happened to be an editor, a publisher, and a publication date. Okay, I put the number 6 in the corner. And now it's time for me to take a look at each of the 3 poems I've selected. So if I'm working with a theme of the harshness of reality or the loss of innocence, and I'm working with William Blake's Songs of Experience. He has Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. The first poem that I've selected is called The Chimney Sweeper. So I put the number 6 here in the corner to show that it's coming from this volume, and I'm giving it letter A because I want to also recognize the fact that this happens to be poem A, or poem number 1, Chimney Sweeper. Now, when I'm deciding what quotes to take, and I have to take a grand total of 3 direct quotes from each poem, I definitely want to choose references that are going to help prove my theme. So if my theme is about the loss of innocence and the harshness of reality, I want to take references that are going to develop that, because it'll make my argument that much simpler when the time comes. So I'm taking this particular line. You might notice something weird going on with the quotation marks here. There's a double and a single, and that's only because this is actual speech within the context. So there's a single within the double. That rarely happens, so it probably won't happen for you. But it happened here because the speaker is actually saying, or somebody's saying to the speaker, "Where are thy father and mother? Say, And the little boy answers, "They are both gone up to the church to pray." I don't put any punctuation mark here by the quotations. Instead, I do the parentheses. LL is the abbreviation for lines. And this poem does have lines, so it's lines 3 to 4. That's what's going on inside the parentheses, and my period will go outside. Now, whenever I do a note card, it's a good idea to explain on the back, in my own shorthand, why I've chosen that particular quote. And it could be, again, abbreviations and things like that. So this is the reverse side of that same note card. And it's basically giving me an idea of what I want to say when the time comes as I'm writing paragraphs. So the little boy is asked about his parents. Both of the parents are dead. The boy, therefore, is an orphan. This is all going to help prove to me, or prove to my reader as I develop my argument, the loss of innocence. Here's a little kid who's forced to take a job as a chimney sweeper because both of his parents have passed away and he has no other option. So that was the first quote from the poem. This is my second quote. I'm using 6A because, again, it's the same poem, The Chimney Sweeper, right? They clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing notes of woe. Parentheses, LL, lines 7 to 8, period outside. On the reverse side, in his job as a chimney sweeper, the little boy wears dark clothing, he works in a confined space, and he's filled with sadness. So this is on the reverse side. It just gives me an idea of how I'm building my argument about the sadness of this boy's case and the loss of innocence and the harshness of the reality that he has to confront. I'll do the same for one more quote. Again, this is still 6A because it's telling me that it's still from The Chimney Sweeper. I take my quotation, I have my documentation, lines 9 to 10, period outside, and on the reverse I explain the adults who have exploited him think that they've caused this boy no harm, when in reality there's no coming back for him. So that would be an example of source cards. There's really going to be only one source if you're taking all 3 poems from the same volume. And I just gave you 3 different note cards with writing on the front and writing on the back. So poem number 1 then is done. Number 1 is finished. Okay, because that was listed as 6A. Now it's time for me to poem 2. I would do the same thing. Oh, first, this is what it looks like. So all of these come from poem number 1, The Chimney Sweeper, right? I would do the same now for poem number 2. I'll label this one 6B. The title is called The Little Vagabond, and I'm taking a quote. I'll do something on the reverse side, and I'll have a total of 3 of these that come from poem number 2. I will do the same for poem number 3. So this will be 6C, 6C, and 6C, and then I'm ready to go. So although this isn't necessarily part of the overall project, this is definitely something I think that we're going to do because it's going to help us down the line when you actually have to put together an outline. Because in order to prove your theme or prove your thesis, you need evidence, right? And the evidence will come not only from those singular critic quotes, but your evidence will come from the poetry itself. You'll be referring 3 times to each poem in order to develop whatever your topic happens to be. Okay, so good luck with that. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to come and see me.